Start recording before you actually want to record. Is it good?
Yeah, that's what she
Because this is the stuff that happens, with technology, as you know. And, your backup plan, there's a few backup plans you might have. If your batteries aren't working, you can plug into the wall. It doesn't work at that moment, you reteach that lesson, you capture it, whatever it is. But this is the stuff that happens with the camera, so you kind of got to roll with it. Okay, are we good? Are we recording? Okay, so we'll start with Sean.
Okay, start me. Again, I'm Sean Marr, and I did my edTPA in the spring of this year, spring that passed this year, in secondary education for social studies. During that time, I took advice from other people. I found a lot of useful things on my own while I was working on it. First thing, when you get in your classroom, you want to tell your students what it is you have to do for the edTPA. Even if they don't get it entirely, all they have to really know is that they're being recorded. I believe you showed them, they've seen the form already.
They have it in their packet, yes. You have a parent permission form in your packet in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Chinese. And that's what you'll use unless your district has a special one, and for example, Arlington, which Patrick has. But yes, you have all of that in your packet.
So in your first week, or even before your first week, if you can get in early, it could be good to get in early in the classroom, see how the class is going to look, anything that your cooperating teacher might suggest to you, and during the first week, find out which class you want to record. Look for the class. I'd say look for the class that's the best behaved. Doesn't matter what kind of. You could do it either way, but I personally found it easiest to do the class that was the most well behaved. I did it in an honors class for history. I knew that they would be able to answer a lot of the questions that I was asking them on the video. I wanted them to see that on the video. That's definitely what they want to see as well. The first thing is hand out the permission forms right away when you pick which class you want to record. And don't feel like you're above bribing the kids. When I first went in, I gave out the permission forms. I said, if you get these to me by the end of the week, you'll get 2 pieces of candy. And it worked. I got all of them in. Actually, there was a couple I got in the second week. They only got 1 piece of candy, but you can offer candy for permission forms. I highly recommend that because I got permission forms in from everybody in the class. I also had one student who was a very good student, but he fell asleep in class sometime. So these are kind of things you just think about while you're doing it. I decided to give this student the job of being my cameraman because I didn't want them to see on the video him sleeping in front of the class. So I knew that I could get him to stay awake if I gave him the camera, had him record from the back of the classroom. So yeah, don't be afraid to have a student record. Don't make sure that you're not doing only direct instruction for your lessons. Depending on what your content area is, you're going to have different video requirements. For me, for the social studies, we had to do 2 videos. So my first video was direct instruction. I made sure I was calling on students by name, though, getting the answers from the students. And my second video was kind of a group. So I had some group work where they were doing a reading and analyzing a reading, and I just kind of recorded inside that group, just me discussing the reading with the group. Another thing, when I found that I had to get a lot of my documents in, edTPA is pretty generous with accepting different formats. If you use OpenOffice, they accept OpenOffice format, they accept Microsoft Word, they accept a lot of different formats, but there are certain things that you have to upload that it wants them in PDF form. So a lot of those are just like, this is kind of some of the work that you might have gave the students. It has you upload them in the PDF form, and then it wants you to have one file. So I had a problem with that because I had multiple documents that I scanned onto my computer, and it wanted them all as one file. I found a website called PDF Merge. You
Write
guys
this down.
might want to write that down.
Yeah, somebody asked me about that just the other day,
Oh, did they?
and like they should have taken their notes.
Yeah,
So, write that stuff down.
There is a website called PDF Merge. It's a free tool. You just go into the website, upload all the different PDFs onto that website, and it condenses them all into one file. So then you can upload that one file.
Is that .com or?
That is .com. Yes, PDFmerge.com.
Sean, did you have to use compression software too?
Did I use what?
Compression software?
I did not actually.
Okay.
But definitely when you get your camera, make sure you have used the camera. Make sure you have fresh batteries every day. The lesson that I really wanted to be on video, I didn't get on video because my batteries died halfway through the lesson. So make sure you have fresh batteries. Make sure, even record a week in advance if you have to. I mean, the first day you bring a camera into the classroom, the kids are probably going to be crazy because they know that they're going to be recorded. So give them at least a day to be crazy on camera, whatever they have to get out, before you do the lessons that you really want recorded. And when you're writing up the edTPA, the forms that you get, the commentary forms that you get, it's a list of questions about your planning, your instruction, and your assessment. In all of those forms, make sure you're making those comparisons between planning, instruction, and assessment. I think that's one of the most important things that they're looking for. So when you do instruction, assess yourself on it. Say, okay, well, this goes back around to my planning. This is what I would do next time. I would spend an extra day on this because I don't think the students got it too much. When you do your assessment and say, this is how I assess the students, what does that tell you for next time, for what you're going to plan next time, for your instruction next time? And in the form, you're going to have a lot of questions that look the same. You're going to find questions and you're going to be like, I thought I just answered this, and they're asking the same question again. When you come to those, even though it's like the same question, answer it differently. You can answer using research, any articles that you find, educating articles that you've picked up from your classes, whatever you pick up online. If you're in an honor society, take whatever they have. Just do a lot of research because they do want to see the research. If you come to the same question again and you've already answered it with research, do your connections between planning and instruction and assessment. If you come to another question that looks the same, where have you done that in your work? Where can you show that in your videos? So just answer the questions differently even if it's the same question. I think that's about it.
That is good advice, because I think that some people felt as though that things were repetitive.
I felt that a lot of it.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that.
Right.
You know, I think that they are trying to see how strong you're going to make your point.
Right.
That there's opportunity for you to maybe elaborate in some places and get more points, you know, adding research and theory and things like that. So keep at it, you know, even though you feel like, you know, I already answered this question. See prompt 4, you know, you can't do that. You just kind of have to, you know, restate what you already have, explain it a little better, back it up. That argumentative piece becomes pretty important. So, thank you, Sean. Cynthia.
My name is Cynthia. I did my edTPA placement in a 5th grade classroom at Goshen Intermediate School, and Like Sean said, I don't think there's anything wrong with bribing the kids for the permission slips, as well as like when it's time to videotape. Like I had 5th graders and I told them like before, I was like, this is the camera and I has to go to the state to like, so I can become a teacher. And they were like, oh, we want you to become a teacher, so we're gonna do really well. And I told them like, if they were perfect, that they would have a big party at the end of videotaping. So they were great during my videotaping, and then they tested the edge after the camera was gone. But that's okay, as long as they were good when my supervisor came. But I mean, it works. Like it sounds bad that like you're bribing them, but like they want to like get the prize. To go with like task 1, that's like basically your unit. So it's like all your lessons and all your instructional materials, as well as your assessments, which like are your evaluations from your lesson plans. They asked for 3 to 5 lessons. I did 4 lessons. I wouldn't do 3 because I feel like in case like you don't have enough with your videotaping, you want to have that extra just to work with. So if I had enough like more content, I would have went for the 5. That's what I recommended for the people that I'm helping with this semester. Most of them all have 5 lessons. I just think it has more for you to work with in the commentaries when you write about your reasoning, as well as like getting work from the students. I did mine on persuasive writing. I would have, when you plan out your unit in the beginning, like when you know like, oh, you want to do it on a piece of writing, persuasive writing for example, think about your endpoint. Like what is the goal that you want them to achieve, and how are you going to show that? Because that's what I used as their work samples for task 3. So my goal was for them to be able to know persuasive writing by having an essay. So you need to think about what kind of work sample you want to show the state for task 3. So I used their essay, but I also had work samples of the graphic organizer that they used to support their work. So when I submitted that for their work samples in task 3, I had not only their essays with comments on it, but I had their graphic organizers, and I included the rubric on how I graded them. So they get to see all of the steps. If you have more like stuff, like graphic organizer, something to go along with their work, I feel like you have more to talk about in a commentary. You have more like reasoning and facts to back up your points that you're making. Also, I would strive to make like everyone do the end project. Like I know sometimes like kids don't finish it, and that's fine because you're gonna need a high, medium, and a low. So the kid that didn't finish it could be your low. You know, just say like, didn't have time to complete it, you know, like you use that to your advantage. Also for, yes?
Before you continue, you said high, medium, or low. What do you
So like my thing was persuasive writing. So I had the rubric. So like, let's say the high score you could receive was a 25 points. You're gonna have a kid that basically scores 25. And you're gonna have a kid that scores very low, like a 2 out of 25, a 0, whatever it is. Like I had for mine example, my low kid did his essay but had like 1 paragraph and didn't even include a graphic organizer. So that gave him points down. So you need to, that's why you plan ahead, think about what your end project's gonna be and how you're grading them, because you're gonna pick out a kid that does really, really strong and a kid that does low. And then you have like the one that's just kinda in the middle.
You have to, in task 3, your work samples have to be like that. You have to pick a high scorer, a medium, and then your low one should be a child that receives accommodations of some sort.
Yeah.
Is that okay if it's the same student for each area, or do you want to kind of fluctuate? Like, there's one student who always gets the highest grade in the class, and there's one student who always has the lowest. Do you tend to keep those two students and their work, or do you want to really show like other students' Do you understand what I'm saying? Or making that confusing?
There's only 3 work samples, so you only have 3 students. You're not gonna show work from any other kids.
Okay, so you're using the same 3 students throughout.
Yes.
Yeah, there's
They
literally,
become your focus students, that's the term
Yeah.
they use.
but those students do not have to be the same as the math, which I'll get into, which is task 4. Those could be completely different kids, if that makes sense. So along with the video though, one thing that edTPA stresses is academic language. Mine was persuasive writing, so they had things that they needed to know, like use the word convince. I believe that. The word persuade, obviously. They used an orographic organizer to help them, so that was like another term that went with the unit. They want to hear the kids saying those words, so you need to prompt them. And like you can say to them like, oh, what's another word that we use for persuade? As long as you're not like literally saying it, like you can prompt them to get them to say what you want. But academic language is huge. If they don't hear you making connections between your like unit commentary and like in the classroom, then like you receive lower grades for task 2, which is the video part. And task 3 is the work samples from the unit. Like I said, you just choose whatever you want them to be completing. I also with mine included a culminating activity, which made them have the chance to show that they learned the topic as well, but in like a fun way. So like in the commentaries it asked like, how did you relate to their personal interest, and you have to relate to their cultural or community assets.
We touched a little bit on that.
Yeah, so like you think ahead like about like what your kids like and to relate to the materials. So like when I was doing persuasive writing, I used prompts like, do you think, or persuade your parents to let you stay up late. That's something that relates to them. Persuade the principal to let you use cell phones in school. It's something that relates to them. So you need to make those connections with your students to think about, you know, what they like and what they're interested in, whether they play sports after school, use something like that in your reading prompts. Like that all kind of relates. I'm helping out a student now. She's doing hers on science. A lot of kids like environmental things, they like being outside, so that's how she related it. So if you like get to know them early on, that helps. I also would try to have your unit kind of figured out with your teacher earlier than later. Ask her like, you know, when you can start, like be expected to start videotaping and start your unit, because like with the spring, I'm sure you guys might hit into this. I had to work around the state test. So, and you also have spring break, Easter break, that all comes into play when you need to get the videotapes done. So I would pay attention to that. I did my videotape in the 2nd week. So it's a little early, but I think it's extremely beneficial when you start, like, you know, you'll start dealing with snow days too. So like just you have to watch out for that. I know it seems like it's a lot right now, but I promise you guys will be fine. Task 4 is the math for elementary only has math, right?
Yes, correct.
You have to pick, so you do like a learning segment, which you don't have to teach the lessons, your teacher can teach them. So it's basically 3 hours or 3 lessons kinda, is that how it goes?
Yeah. 3 to 5.
3 to 5. And it's just like on like one concept. So I didn't teach the actual math lessons, my teacher did, but I was there like, you know, observing, kind of helping her. And then you use that and you pick out work samples of showing kids making mistakes with like a common concept or a misconception or just errors. So it's basically like similar errors, but you're picking 3 students that did poorly. One of which should be a student like that has like an IEP or a 504. So you pick those 3 students, and then using their work, you create a re-engagement lesson based on the, like what they've been doing wrong. So if they had trouble multiplying, that's gonna be your focus, or if they had trouble, showing their work, like, those are the things you pinpoint for your re-engagement lesson. And then you work with a small group, reteaching them. Now, they asked for 3, but I did 6 kids that I pulled out for my re-engagement lesson, so I looked at 6 kids' work, because there's no guarantee that all 3 of your kids are gonna improve the second time, which is okay, but it gives you more to work with. But I wouldn't go in too much bigger than 6, because you're supposed to be focusing on a small group to work with to re-engage. But I would do more than 3. Yeah?
So you did 6, but you submitted 3?
Yeah,
so you
oh,
had
sorry.
more to look at, but you didn't report on the 3 that did work for you?
Like I took, the whole class did from the lessons that the teacher taught. Like the whole classes work. So I looked at the whole class and I pulled out 6 that did poorly. And I had those 6, and I had all 6 do the re-engagement lesson. Then I looked at the re-engagement work, and whatever students, I picked 3 out of that.
Okay.
So then I picked the 3 from the first set and the 3. So I got rid of the other 3, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
That's actually a good idea.
yeah.
Just because you don't know if like a kid's not gonna get it, a kid could be absent,
And you just want the best.
a kid could make no improvement, which is, I personally pick the best samples to show improvement. You don't have to, because in the commentary for that too, it also says, what would you have done different, what would you have changed? So it's okay, they understand not every kid's gonna fully get it the second time.
show how they progressed, if
Yes.
progression?
Yes, because you're gonna scan in the computer and show the state both their work for the original and for the re-engagement. So they're gonna see that like the kid improved, and it's okay if they didn't get perfect scores the second time, if that makes sense. Talking about the student work in both task 3 and task 4, the comments, not only do you make positive comments, but you have to leave constructive criticism, and you need to be specific. You can't just say good job, you have to say good job using this vocabulary, good job using, this persuasive term, I like how you did this. Like, they don't want you to just say, like, good work, well done. You need to be specific. Also, you can say, like, with the constructive criticism, like, always leave one positive and at least one positive and something to, like, improve. So I like how you did this, but next time do that, because they need to see both. Pretty much, I think that's it. One thing that I would just, as my personal, recommendation, there's a lot of files, there's a lot of things you scan, there's a lot of parts, it's like task 1 part A through D, there's a lot of files you're gonna have on your computer. Before you start, I personally made an edTPA folder, and inside that folder I made folders for each task. So there's the 4 tasks, because you're gonna get confused, that student 1's work sample, but that student 1's work sample for 3, not 4. So it gets overwhelming. So I would just make separate folders, just so everything's kind of organized and you're not driving yourself crazy. But that's what I did, so a little recommendation.
Yeah, really good advice so far. Before we move on to Nicole, there was a few things they hit on that I just want to make sure you have written down and that you understand. 1, names. No last names ever. Okay, first names only.
Also shown in the video, on their desk.
Yes. If you are an elementary school teacher, chances are you will have kids' names fairly large on their desk. So if you're walking around the room videotaping, be careful of that, because we had a student who actually, that happened to, and she had a meltdown because we didn't know what she was going to do about those names. She was able to do some more footage and select some footage that didn't have the child's last name. A feature for you guys is that you are, the only editing feature you're allowed to use is the blur out. You are allowed to do that now, that's new. So if you can figure out, I know that there's a way in Movie Maker. I'm a little bit new to Movie Maker that we use, or iMovie if we use a Mac. But there is a way to blur out names somebody had a situation in their class where the pants were too low, and so the boxers were showing, and that's a style, but she decided that she would blur that, okay?
When you meant like the student teachers boxers were showing.
Yeah,
I'm
with the
like,
kids.
When you like upload the student work, do you have to like white out their name or you just white out
Yes.
their last name?
No.
everything.
White
Okay,
out
white
everything and label them student 1, student 2,
Okay.
student 3, and that's the way you refer to them in your commentary,
Okay.
Yeah.
okay?
Or like if you don't want to white out, what I did too, like what you can do, I just put like a sticky note over it, and on the sticky note I wrote student
Okay.
1, just in case like you forgot, like, oops, what kid
Right.
was this? Like, you know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know, like you'll start pinpointing your students. Like you'll know, like, oh, Nick is my high student. Like he's got to be the high one. Like you're gonna remember it more like that than like as student 1 or student 2.
Yeah.
But
Right, so in your
Yeah.
video, you can use their first names, you know, to call on them.
But then on their work, you have to white their whole name out.
Right,
Okay.
right, and try also not to give any identifying information as to what school you're in.
yeah,
I mean, obviously, if you're teaching, you know, the math modules, they're gonna know if it says Engage New York on your projection or your handouts,
yeah, that's
that, you know, they're gonna be able to identify the
So how do
state
you
you're from,
do
but
the part 1 where you have to talk about the school that you're in? Like,
you generally describe it, you never name your school,
Okay,
you
you
never
just
say,
give a
I'm
general
student teaching
description.
at Newburgh Free Academy, you don't
Okay.
say that.
you just give a general.
Right, and
okay.
somebody also had, last time, there was something up on the wall that said, you know, our school rules at
Mhm.
Maria Elementary School, you know, but luckily it was far enough out of the shot, you couldn't really read it, but some stuff like that kind of have to be aware of. Julie?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know I'm student teaching at a Catholic school and they are gonna have their names on their uniform vests, like the name of the school on their vest.
Uh-huh.
What will I do with
It doesn't,
that?
does it just say BDM or does it say Bishop Dunn Memorial, or?
No, this
is
is,
it
I'll say Columba and Hopewell Junction.
Okay,
I mean, it's a big name, like it's,
yeah, there isn't much you can do about that. If I
do
use
I
blur.
like block that out, like am I gonna get?
That's a lot.
Masking tape.
No, I think that,
Maybe just, you would ask your cooperating teacher or the principal just for the taping, if they could remove their vest?
That's a good idea.
No?
yeah, you could, otherwise I'm not really sure how clear that'll show up on your video anyway.
You
These are not
probably
recorded in
should-
HD.
Your video
I mean-
recording.
Yeah,
It's gonna
it's
be
not
low
quality.
Yeah, and especially once you have to edit the video because it needs to be a certain file size. So like your original video is gonna look clear as day. When you edit it to make it like under like what 200 or 300, it looks fuzzy, which is fine, but it's really not like as
It's not crystal clear.
Yeah.
quality.
I wouldn't stress it. And you'd be surprised what you're actually gonna videotape. Like mine, their backs were to the video camera. Like I was doing direct instruction, so the camera was like in the back of the classroom.
Test
And,
it
like-
first and see what it looks like, and then, you know, and see if you have to proceed with asking them to remove. I mean, sometimes they just take them off anyway.
Or just didn't ask me because
I
I
mean,
went
that's
to
what I
private
would do.
school and they hated whenever we took off our sweaters, so I think
Yeah.
Okay. So that's some strategies for you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Maggie,
Test 4, is that for everyone or just
that's childhood only.
childhood? Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was.
Yeah, what Cynthia discussed though really, you know, can apply to task 3 also because the math piece is an assessment piece, but when she was talking about the re-engagement lesson, that's the lesson that you have to teach. You don't necessarily have to teach the learning segment, that can be you and your cooperating teacher or just your cooperating teacher. But the re-engagement lesson is the one that you have to teach.
And it doesn't have to be like a regular full in-depth lesson like your other lessons are. They just look for strategies you use, instructional materials, and how you evaluated them, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah, and that's another thing is a lot of times your PowerPoint or Smartboard presentation doesn't show up in the video, so that's why you upload your instructional materials. So whatever you're showing or projecting, you also need to have as a file in task 1.
Yeah, I would make like copies of like all the stuff that you end up like using, all the passage prompts, like if you can make copies of the textbook pages, like just in case you never know like what instructional materials you're gonna have and like to go back and find those papers sometimes are, it's hard.
Alright, yeah. Emily,
Where did you set up the camera? I mean, did you change depending on what type of lesson you were doing, or was it always like in the back left corner? Like you were talking about you were always in the back. All your students were in the back, and you had a camera person. Did that person like zoom in and zoom out, and like, or did you change where it was, or was it always just like in the left corner, or just the same angle for every video you did?
I have mine in the corner of the room, but then at one point I was reading to them and like we were actively discussing, so we were in a certain section of the classroom, so then I paused it and moved it over there. So we just, move it close enough.
That's okay to pause it? Isn't that like editing?
I wouldn't pause it because it makes a different file, so it cuts the clip. I'm working with someone right now who the teacher pressed the button to take a picture in the middle, so it cut her clip in half. So the two clips I needed to use was the end of the first clip and the beginning of the second. So instead of me being able to use the one chunk and go find another clip, I had to use the two clips in that way.
So can you edit it though? Like if you have two clips, can you make them into one, or you have to upload both separate
You have
clips?
to upload,
two
yeah.
clips separately. You can have up to 2 clips
Okay.
that equal 15 minutes, or if you're social studies or English, and I think it's science too, Iris, but we can check. 20 minutes. It is 20 minutes? Okay.
Oh, I see, so when you paused it, it was the two separate files that you uploaded. That was your.
Maybe I didn't, I did it so long ago.
Yeah.
It depends though, there's not a guarantee that you're gonna wanna use those clips like that, but I just think when it cut it, the person, one of the people I'm helping now, it messed up because if I could have just used the one clip, I could have went and looked for an additional clip somewhere else that I liked as well.
Do both clips have to be from the same lesson?
No.
But yeah, they have to be from your learning segment, your 3 to 5 lessons that you're teaching.
So that's another thing also I would recommend is one of my clips was direct instruction and one I had them kind of being more involved. They were helping me write the persuasive essay and filling out a graphic organizer. It still was them sitting at the rug with me, but just a different variety. And I would pay like they said, I would pay attention to where you place the camera. I placed the camera on one side of the room the first day, and it so happened that it was next to the heater, and I didn't hear the kids too well. So I moved it to the other side of the classroom the second day, and the kids, you could hear them 10 times better. So pay attention to your surroundings. You don't want to have it next to the blower because that's noise, white noise that's just in the classroom. Also tell your kids to speak up. You don't want them to scream, but some of the kids talk really low, and it's really hard for you to go back and remember what they said for the commentary. So I would recommend telling them to speak up, as well as when you're teaching, kind of restate what they say, because you're not going to probably look at these videos right away, and do your commentary. So I went back and if a kid said, oh, the reason for, one reason I have is, I said, great, that's a good reason. I like that you said your reason is. By restating them, it's a check for you. You can put in, what is it, the
subtitles.
You can put in
yes, yeah,
you can.
Okay.
But there's not chances that you're gonna remember exactly what every kid said for each part. So I think it's just a way to kind of check yourself, and then you will remember oh yeah, that kid mentioned this this point or this topic. You'll remember some of those things, but you're probably not gonna do it right away,
Yeah, if you can't hear the kids very clearly, you should actually, in your video, put in a subtitle of exactly what they said, because that's important in the scoring. A couple other things came up. Okay, so names, I talked to you about the blurring. You cannot, if you take pictures of work samples, JPEGs are not accepted in the Pearson system, so you need to put your picture into a Word document, either that or scan, okay? But JPEGs will not be accepted, so write that down and remember that. Grading criteria, we touched on that, that's very important, that needs to be in task 3. Feedback to students, also very important. Cynthia and Sean both touched on the fact that most of the time feedback to students is right on the work samples or on the grading criteria sheet, rubric, whatever. And you need to say, I like the way you did this, very specific and positive. Next time we're going to work on that. So you have a next step. They're looking for next steps in your feedback, okay? Nothing definitive. really, that's why formative assessments are better than summative assessments for edTPA, because summative assessments are seen as very final, that's the end, you learned it, we moved on. They wanna see, what did those kids learn, and what are you gonna make sure you're going to touch on for those kids who didn't learn? What's gonna be their next step so that they understand that concept? Okay? Alright, good. And Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I student taught in the 3rd grade general ed classroom at Foster Camp. So, I know it's very overwhelming when you're planning your edTPA, so you're probably like, where do I start? The first thing that I did is I started thinking about what I felt comfortable like teaching, and depending on whether or not they're doing the modules in their classrooms, then you have to also plan ahead of when they're going to be doing what lessons so that you can also see what you're going to be recording and then start planning what kind of lessons you're going to be doing. And don't write your lesson plans like the first thing. I would just get an idea in the back of your head of what you want to do, and then based on that, start developing your central focus, because everything is wrapped around your central focus. And I didn't realize how important it was, and then I had already written all my lesson plans, and I was like, oh no, the central focus, and it worked out, but it's a good idea to really focus on the central focus first, and then you will have really good lessons that go with it, and it'll be well-rounded. So the next thing that I think is important is there's a lot of new terms that you are going to be like having to answer. What is the language function, stuff like that, that you probably are kind of getting used to those terms, and they're all in like your booklet and in the questions. What I found really helpful was I went through and I wrote down, bulleted on loose leaf paper, all the new terms that I was going to have to be answering according to my lessons. And then I wrote how it was going to apply, like my language function is going to be to analyze or something. And then it's very helpful when you're doing the questions because they get repetitive, and then you're like, oh no, I already answered what my language function is, but I forgot what it was. And then it's helpful if you have the loose leaf to look back on, and you're not like, saying things differently and it's not how you wanted it. So that was helpful. It's really repetitive, like everyone was saying. So just make sure that you're very clear and you over-explain, because sometimes an idea might be really clear in your head, and you might think that it's coming across the way that you want them to hear it, but then when you have many different opportunities to say it, then they get the full picture that's in your head that you didn't realize they weren't quite catching. And then you also never know, they might be taking a break and then go back to reading the rest of it, and they forgot what you were saying before anyway, so it's really good to overemphasize all of your ideas. I found the questions when I was doing it to be very different, that I wasn't used to that type of wording, and some words I felt like I knew what they meant, but then I Googled it and I found there was different definitions of ways that I could answer the questions, and it made it more well-rounded answer because I had many different ways to look at the question, and it was just more focused answer, and they were able to see how I was looking at it in many different ways. And I also found a checklist before your video. I didn't do this, and then after I was looking at the video, I was like, oh my gosh, I needed language use, and I had a section where I was doing vocabulary with them, and that was kind of my practice section that I wasn't really going to include. But then I was like, oh, I need that now. So it's good to definitely take more than you were really going to be using, because then you might find that it's something that you needed. So, yeah, I feel like a lot of other stuff has already been touched upon. Just be confident. I feel like even though that TPA is pretty new, and it's not like all the classes since freshman year have been geared towards it, but I still feel like the amount, the way they've been teaching us, unknowingly, they have been teaching you all the tools that you need for this, so you're definitely able to do it. So, be confident.
And like Nicole said, I have videotape extra, I videotape every day. You don't know what clip you're gonna use, you don't know what's, if something can happen, the sound in the room, the teacher can talk, which that's not allowed at all. A kid can walk in front of the screen, which might not be a big deal, but you might not like it. I just videotape every single day you do your unit. You really don't know what you're gonna like most.
The teacher can't talk at all in the video?
No.
Okay.
Cannot be heard, that will affect your score. So they
She
have
can't
to
talk to the
be
kids
clear
or
on
like
that.
to you.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Like if they interject, like, oh, don't forget to tell them their homework tonight. Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Not gonna be a part of your video.
But like don't like go home and delete that video because you don't know if you'll use the beginning
You can
clip.
just cut that out.
Yeah,
Right, stop
like
it.
you could use the first half of that video. Like don't get rid of it, but just know you can't use that section.
Now, can the teacher be on the video? Like
They
if
can
she's
use
walking
some-
around the room?
Yeah, I chose to have mine sit at her desk, but it's up to you. Some people have them and be in charge of the camera. Sometimes they go and do their own thing. They grade. It's really up to the teacher's preference. I personally used the tripod and left it sitting there. I didn't want anyone to touch it. Because there is a button, if you click the shutter button by accident, it takes pictures in the middle of your video. So like, I didn't want anyone touching my thing. You don't have to worry about zooming in really, like, it's okay because you're gonna be including your instructional materials, that's how I feel. Like, I didn't think it was a big deal if they didn't see like what you were writing on the board. Because you're hearing yourself.
And if you're using like a PowerPoint and they can't necessarily like read it or see it, it's just gonna be included in your thing so that don't even worry about that.
Yeah, it'll be included in task 1.
And then you can refer, in task 2, that you had PowerPoint up, to
Yeah.
refer to those PowerPoints.
And like it'll say the questions like, oh, what did you use to help your students successfully engage in the essential literacy strategy or whatever, like, so then you say, oh, they use this instructional material, I use this support, like it asks for those things.
Okay, can you say like in your answers like, look back at this or look, reference this or
Yeah.
do you need like a works cited? Because you guys were talking about naming people like Bloom and Vygotsky. Do you need like a works cited or not that formal?
I had one because I did use Bloom's taxonomy and Vygotsky and all of these things that you learn at the Mount, all of these theorists. So I did have one on my last page. You don't have to have a works cited for your own work, obviously, for your own videos and everything, but yeah.
And for like the theories, like I didn't have a works cited, but I said like, according to blah blah blah, so whatever theorist it was, and then I included like, you'll see with most of them like the years that like their theory was.
Yeah.
So I included that. So I didn't have like a works cited page. I just made sure like I said like who said it and like when it was from.
Yes, either form is acceptable and will still gain you the points that you need.
So either inline or
Or
reference
works.
page.
Julie.
If we're gonna like do that, like cite in the paper, it should be MLA or APA. Or does it really not matter at all?
I used APA because it's like a psychology type of thing. It probably doesn't matter,
Okay.
but I used APA.
I wouldn't over stress with stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, I have
thought of that.
okay. No, yeah, I have people I'm helping this semester and they're picking the littlest things to stress and I'm like, don't worry about that, please. We have bigger things to worry about. Yeah.
For those of you that took the second placement, the special ed placement, how did that differ from your first placement? Like was the experience, was there anything notable that stood out from your first placement?
I definitely had like a completely different experience. I was in a general ed classroom, 5th grade, and then I went to a BOCES. And the kids literally like hit one another and like it's very like it's a whole different atmosphere. Like you have to do behavior management, you're exposed to different things. I mean, not all of you will get a setting like that. Some of you might be like in an inclusion class or, nothing as extreme as that.
But you won't be doing an edTPA
Yeah.
in your special ed.
So you don't have to worry about that. You have to just worry about your 3 observation lessons, completing an IEP, an FBA, and an integrated fieldwork assignment. So like it's a different, like you don't have to worry about having a video camera or like doing a unit.
Okay.
It's just your observation lessons really is like your focus, and then whatever else the teacher has you teach. Like I for the first week observed, and then the second week I took on 1 subject, and the next week she felt that I was ready to take on 2 subjects. So like it's a different kind of like atmosphere.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for your edTPA, are you only including like your lessons and your video and everything from your first placement and not your second?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's only your lessons for your unit, so it's not like any
Right.
other different lessons that you may have from observations.
Right.
So like I had my unit unit lessons, and then I was observed other times for like a science lesson or whatever, like
Yeah, so you're doing your edTPA in your first experience. I think all of you, most of you.
They all do?
They all
Yeah,
I had a
front loaded, I think that way, so you're either doing it in your, regular classroom experience or your content, area, in your English class. Are all of you dual certs? Okay, so you're not doing your edTPA at all in special ed?
Another thing I just remembered is like, a lot of people think you have to do like your unit on like English. Like you can do it on science or social studies, whatever you would like, but like have support. Like you have to support with like a literacy kind of like content. Like I know someone was doing like about living things, but they had to do main idea and details. So it can be a science or a social studies like content with vocab and stuff. It doesn't have to be ELA, but you need to have that connection. Like whether it's like using Venn diagrams to compare and contrast, or main idea detail. It needs to have something to help you connect.
I think that the language function is one of the most important parts. When it asks you for your language function, it's going to give you choices. So you're going to have a couple to pick from. You could do your own, or more likely you're going to do one of the choices that they give you, because those are the things they really want to see. Personally, I did compare and contrast for mine. When I answered that question, what is your language function, you can never over answer something unless you're going above the page limit, but in which case you can. But for that, what is your language function? I said my language function is compare and contrast, and I went on for 3 paragraphs about how compare and contrast is used in the classroom, how it's beneficial. I did some research on compare and contrast from some of my books from classes. You really can't over answer a question. Just give them as much as you have for each question. The other thing is, make sure you're using your language function all the time. I did 5 lessons for my edTPA, and all 5 lessons were centered around compare and contrast, because that was what my language function was. That's what they wanted to see.
And like example like language functions are like explain, identify, analyze, like, and they have on the form like examples for you to choose from, or there's like a blank box that you can pick your own.
There is a little chart of words that you can use for your language function that you can, like you said, select or fill in your own. But all of that becomes part of your central focus too. Your central focus is basically, an overview, a big overview goal of your learning segment. And I've seen anything from a pretty good meaty sentence to a short paragraph of 2 to 3 sentences of a central focus.
Yeah. I would always talk like in the generic terms first and then relate it to your unit. Like I would, like mine was persuasive writing. Like persuasive writing is like the author's trying to convince their, like go into like talking in general what it is, and then talk about how you did it in the unit. And like the language function like can be like a little different. Like it doesn't have to be the exact same. Like compare, like some people did like compare and contrast as their central focus, and then that's another like language function down below. But like my central focus was persuasive writing, and the language function was argue, because they're arguing their point. So it doesn't have to be the same word. It's okay that it's different.
And the language functions are a bit specific per content area too. So a science language function is going to be different from an English or a childhood language function. Sean, your video was interesting. It always sticks out in my mind. You had the 2 clips. Could you describe that to them a little bit?
So I had 2 clips for my video. Social studies requires 2 clips for the video. It asks you for 2 specific things it's looking for. When I read it, I kind of interpreted them the same, and I wasn't really sure what they were looking for, but what they really want to see for social studies is analyzing primary sources. I believe for science they do like a lab. I'm not sure too much about the other ones. So I wanted them to be able to analyze primary sources. So my first video that I did was a direct instruction lesson. It was an introduction to the Cold War. I showed them propaganda from both sides of the Cold War. I had them listen to music from both sides of the Cold War, being the United States and the Soviet Union, so that they could get that understanding. It was just a direct instruction, here's primary source documents. The second video that I did was a group video. I had my class put them in groups. I did plan the groups. There's no reason you shouldn't plan your groups for your video. I took the group that I knew would be able to do a lot of analysis on that topic. So I said I'm going to record you guys because I know you guys are going to be able to analyze this a lot. So I chose a document that I felt like I wanted them to analyze. And basically they had to read the document and dissect it and answer some questions based on that document, which they would then later compare to other documents. It was kind of like a jigsaw activity. Each group had their own documents. In that video I worked with the group. I kind of just sat down with the group and we looked at the document. They read it. They started talking about it. I threw in a couple extra questions besides what was on their question sheet. Tried to get them to analyze it more. There was 2 kids that were kind of staying quiet, so I made sure I called on them specifically and said, okay, well, what do you think about this? And I had them kind of argue between 2 points in that document. So it was kind of comparing and contrasting 2 points within that document.
So that was good. Was it you that walked around with the camera?
I did walk around with the camera for that video. For my first video, I had a student record from the back of the room. For that video, I walked around with the camera with the group so I could talk to each one of them individually about the document.
That's what I think made your task too pretty strong.
Yeah, I think that video came out well.
Yeah, it did. It did.
That's
So that was social study. Who else is social studies besides Patrick? Oh, well,
Also, secondary.
okay, secondary social studies, just Patrick. So anyway, that's good advice for you, Patrick, on the social studies.
Another thing, like Sean said, like he prompted kids that didn't speak up to engage in the lesson. That's one of the questions on the commentary. Like, how did you include all students and get all students to engage in learning? I think that's one way, by like prompting kids that may not speak out or kids that don't feel comfortable answering questions. I just think that's like helpful, like when you have to go into your reasoning, when you have to write your commentaries.
Yeah, absolutely. I forget what rubric it is in task 2, that student engagement is,
Commentary, what's on commentary? It's the
Assess.
commentary for task 2.
and then it's tied to a rubric.
Yeah.
So it's either 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. Liz.
Just take a step back. If you were recording, like, you were holding the camera, like yourself?
Yes.
So, how exactly did you do that? So, like, it wasn't anything else in the background, it was just Jack? Like, if you're holding it too close or too far?
I mean, I probably was holding it too close and too far. There were times in the video where you couldn't even see the students' heads because I was trying to make sure I could see what was going on in the rest of the classroom, because you do still have to focus on the rest of the classroom as well. So I had to make sure everyone else was doing what they needed to do, but that I was getting that video. So that's not something to stress on too much if you're too close or too far to the student.
But I think you literally had the camera like this. It seemed like at their desk.
At the desks,
Right?
yeah. I tried to have it at the desks or at the student when they were talking. But
So you weren't in it, it was just the
that video, no, I
Clip
was
1
not in
was.
that.
Okay.
Clip
Clip
2
1
he
I was in,
not.
but, yes, go ahead.
Oh, no, you can finish.
I was just gonna say the most important thing is really, making sure that you know how your camera's gonna work, that you know the batteries are good, because the lesson that I wanted recorded, I missed out on. I didn't get to have that lesson. I really didn't want to have my first lesson, my direct instruction lesson as a video, but I had no choice because I only had that one and my final lesson, the documented group analysis lesson, which I had to craft as this needs to be my edTPA video because my camera didn't work on the other videos that I really wanted. So make sure that you know that your camera is working.
I charge the batteries every night. Like every time you use them, like if you use the school camera, there's 2 batteries, so you should be fine. And it comes up on the camera how much runtime you have with the charge. And there's also the plug. So if the plug is nearby and you can plug it in to a wall outlet, then just plug it in. You know, it's just extra, just in case.
And you don't have to use this camera, like, can I use my own iPad, or no, it has to be?
You can.
You can, but it's just that IT may not be able to support you if you don't use the Mount St. Mary equipment, and that's what Mrs.
And
Tumapalli
there's
is
only
for.
like 3 cameras that all of us have to like.
Oh, no, I have 10. I have
Oh,
10.
Just be careful with the iPad because I heard some few people that they weren't able to get the files onto their computer. So I would play around with that, like record a long video clip and make sure that you can actually get them on your computer, just in case, like, because now, like, I'm helping one student right now, her best clip was on the iPad and she can't get it, and I've tried everything to, like, Google Docsing it, and we just can't get it. We can't get the clip, so just check that first. Yeah?
I've heard of that issue before, and I've heard of people, they videotape the videotape.
Oh,
So you, like, play it,
I didn't
you
think of
play
that.
the iPad, and they'll even videotape it right onto their cell phone, and then email it to themselves or something, so you videotape the
Good
device.
idea.
So
I wish I would have known that a little bit earlier.
See, this is the stuff, this is why we talk, because this
I
stuff
had
isn't
to
out
do
there
it.
anyway.
I did it for like one of Sir Nova's classes or
Okay.
something.
Ah,
Yeah.
good, that's good
Works.
advice.
Yeah.
That's very good advice.
Yeah, just be careful with the videos because little things can go wrong without you realizing it. So I would just videotape extra.
Yeah, that's good advice. Get a lot of videos. Record your entire learning segment for 3 to 5 days, and you know, it might be overwhelming to try to pick your best 15 or 20 minutes, but you're better off to have a lot of footage.
And like, don't worry about the kids like acting up as long as you show how you do behavior management. They're understanding that sometimes kids, you know, they're kids. Like it's quite all right. You know, as long as you like know how to engage and respond to it.
Redirect or something
Yeah.
like that. You don't want to spend your whole time, you know, reprimanding or trying to control behavior. I was talking about that. That's an automatic one. And if you read the Understanding Rubric Level Progressions document, when you get into task stream, that talks about where you might fall into that automatic one category that you want to avoid. Okay. Emily.
I'm assuming like you prepped the kids and told them I'm gonna be like in your face with the camera. Did you
Yes.
tell them? Okay.
Yes, I told that group, I knew that group could handle it. I did make that group for that reason. I knew that they were totally okay with the camera being right there while they were working. You get to know your students, so
Yeah,
you'll
like,
know who's
With
who's
elementary,
okay,
you don't get to
who's
choose, like, you know, that's your class, like, that's what it is, but you're also, I think it's beneficial, like, you're also gonna know your kids and you're gonna know who's been using the terms, your academic language. There's no problem calling on the smart kid to show that they're answering correctly. If you know you can count on that one kid, call on him, but also you have to call on other kids. Like, you know, you can't say like, oh, Johnny, like, you can't, like, they can't hear in your video you're calling on Johnny all the time, but it's likely that in your clip, you're gonna call on some other kid at some other point. But I would, you know, you're gonna, like he said, you know your kids, you know which ones that you can count on, call on
The Um,
them.
ones that like to be the center of the
You know, call on them, but also call on a few that you know that kind of have an understanding but are struggling, because that's okay, they wanna see that, and when you talk about it in your commentary, like, I, you know, built on that student's response by, so like the kid could have possibly not said the full correct answer, but you then re-engaged and said another question, and you built on his response. They need to see that in your commentary. So that's great. It's okay, like, you don't want them to get the answer 100% every time. That's quite all right.
You had a question in the back, but what is your name?
Trisha.
Trisha.
What do you do if a parent doesn't want their student videotaped? Like, how do you kind of?
It's always
Good
in like the back of
question.
the room, probably, right?
Do you wanna answer?
Yeah, I actually was fortunate to have every single kid say yes. We had one kid say no, and my teacher convinced the parents, but at the parent-teacher conference. But yeah, you're supposed to put them to the back of the room or out of the way of the camera.
Out of the shot of the camera.
They are allowed to respond, right? As long
Yeah,
as
they can be heard, they cannot be seen.
yes. So you can have like if that's your awesome kid, and you're like, damn, you know, you can call on them, but they can't be seen.
Okay.
And that's another thing that I think could benefit you because it says, you know, how did you get all students engaged or whatever. You could say like, oh, I called on a student that didn't raise his hand or didn't, you know, wasn't looking to be called on. You were engaging a student, all students. Like it makes like another connection for your benefit. You know what I'm saying? If that makes kind of sense. I know it's a lot to take in right now. There's just like so many questions.
But this is good.
But like I'm literally helping 3 students right now that are like it's due by 4 p.m. today for them. So like it's all in my head for like the past semester.
But you know what? Your peers are your best allies in this whole thing because once you start working on your official edTPA, me, Mrs. Brower, the faculty, your supervisor, we're bound by an ethical code, how much we can really, we can't edit your work, and we have to be we can speak in general terms, what we think you might, you know, want to relook at, but we can't give you specific feedback, but your peers can.
I will
So-
say if you know someone that's
Yeah.
already done it, that is your best
Yep.
bet.
Mhm.
I was able to have someone who did it before me, and she helped me out. And now I'm helping I'm literally tutoring 3 people right now to do to pass edTPA.
Yeah.
So if you know someone, it's literally your to go to
Right, and
because
that's-
they understand the question and they got their grades. Like after you submit, you get you got 3 points out of 4 points for this section. So like that person knows what they are missing or what they need to add. But I will say everywhere that like your commentaries say put a theory because that will be the difference between a 3 and a 4, correct? Or
Yes,
2
yeah,
and
when we do your scavenger
Yeah.
hunt through the handbook, we're gonna talk and we're gonna pick those out.
Yeah. So every time you say research and theory, always include research and theory. And another thing that I noticed with the rubrics, if it says include this or that, include both. Don't
Or is
include
me
one.
and.
Yes. Like there's one thing that says syntax or discourse,
discourse.
you use both. But it helps you because I know some people did, but I didn't run into the problem of running out of space, like with the page max. I know some people had to go back and delete stuff, but I didn't and I still scored mastery, so you should be fine. Like I wouldn't stress, like just keep writing, and if you come to that point where you're like, oops, I'm over, then you'll have to go back. But like just always put more and then you have to figure out what to take out. I wouldn't say like, oh, maybe I'll leave that out for now. Put it in.
Yeah, I agree, but easier to take out than
Yeah.
it is to be wondering what else you could put in.
And I would I would stick to one commentary at a time. I know some people jump around. It gets confusing to kind of keep track, like the work samples you're talking about, or like I would kind of like pick a commentary and get it done. I would do the first one first because it's about your central focus, your essential literacy strategy, and that's all like kind of mentioned in other commentaries.
Yeah,
So I would get your first one done, and then you can like move around. Like if you feel like, oh, I want to take a break and go to like math completely different, that's fine. But you need to get your first one done before you can like do your 2 and 3 because they ask about the academic language in those.
Right, and actually, speaking of that too, in your commentary in task 2, you can insert in the writing, not in the video, in your writing timestamps. You need to actually insert timestamps so that becomes your evidence.
Yeah.
Where you covered, academic language or your strategy or how you modeled or how the kids were able to apply the strategy. Those are all timestamped throughout your commentary in task 2.
And like by timestamp, she means like at 1 minute and 31 seconds, the student said this, or the student did this that showed that. Like you're telling like what time the student said it or what you said at a certain time.
Because the scorer is going to go back forth to your video from your commentary. I know this because I went through part of the scorer training. You go back and forth between what the candidate has written and their video, and you find the evidence, you connect the evidence
And
throughout.
that's literally how you'll write your task 2 commentary. Like, you prop up a video on one side of your computer screen, and you have your commentary up, and you click pause, play, as you go along, and it gets tedious, and it's annoying, but thank God it's only 15 minutes, and it's, like, you'll realize, like, in the thing, like, what section of your video can go to what question, like, as you're going along. And some of it might be, like, duplicates of, like, different questions that you answered, and that's okay.
So you guys are in a very different position from like when Nicole's semester went through, like you didn't have, we had a couple pilot candidates before you, but I don't think you really had.
Yeah, I think there was like one girl who keep it on, right? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So you guys are in a whole, different position now, which is beneficial to you. Jessica.
Do you guys think it was hard, like you looked at a question and had no idea how to answer it, or more just it takes a lot of time?
I didn't have questions, I was like, what? And that's when I just started like Googling definitions just so I could see the different aspects to look at the question. So that was probably dictionary.com helping.
I will say it's very time consuming. If you buckle down, I've been able to get a commentary done in a day, but I mean a whole day, like morning to late evening. Don't leave it to the last minute. I will say, what I find beneficial with like the people I've been helping and what I did myself is to get out of the way all of the extra like parts of the task, like your instructional materials and your evaluations. They all have to, like, all your evaluations, which are all your assessments basically from the lessons, they all go on one Microsoft Word document together. So I would get those files up and uploaded and out of the way and leave the commentaries for the end. But I would just get that stuff out of the way early, like all your scanning, all that stuff done, all your grading, because it makes you feel not so overwhelmed, like, oh my God, I have so many parts of the task to do. Because once you have all that stuff uploaded, you only have 4 parts left. And I say only, but like they're long, but it makes you feel like you're not like 10 feet under, if that makes any sense. So I would just kind of like get all those on like the files that they need to be and like finalized and submitted so they're out of the way. So you don't have to worry about the little work, because like I know people right now that are trying to get it done for 4 and like they have all the scanning to do and all the grading, and that takes time too. But as you're teaching, I find that a little bit easier to get done early while you're worrying about your other lessons that you're teaching in the classroom.
So like once you finish like one lesson, like scan all of that instructional material.
Well, you have to think about what you're gonna use this for the for the lesson, the instructional materials, you need to have everything included. I would scan early because in case you lose something, or if you have to give the textbook back, or you never know. I would just, or keep like a running tally. Like lesson 1, the instructional materials are this, and that. So I need to include all of those things.
What if you use a PowerPoint? How do you include that into your edTPA? Like obviously you wouldn't scan it into.
There's a way I just did it with someone. There's a way on it to insert slides, like a full copy of the slide.
In task 1, right?
Yeah, but like I'm saying, on a Microsoft Word document, there's a way to insert like the slides to actually be shown.
You could screenshot.
You could screenshot them too if you wanted.
Oh, I see, if you don't have your slides printed out.
But go on PowerPoint. I think there's a way, because I did it with someone and I know I didn't screenshot. There is a way, either on PowerPoint or Microsoft Word, like insert, and it comes up.
So you would need to take like your PowerPoint and make it into like a Word document.
All your instructional materials go on one Microsoft Word document.
So like what if you have a PowerPoint that's like 20 slides long?
Then they go on. You say, like it says lesson plan 1, like lesson number 1 instructional materials, and then they all list, and then you go to lesson number 2 and they all list. Like it's one document.
Okay.
It's okay, it's gonna be super long.
Okay.
One file.
Yeah, one file. Yeah. So like mine was like 20 something pages long or whatever, but that's okay. Like they need to see all your instructional materials.
There's a evidence chart in your handbook too that goes through each task and what the limitations are for uploads.
You just make like your PowerPoint 6 slides on one page, or did it have
If you ever, this is the other option if you want to do. Like you know how like you can print out PowerPoint, like you said, like the 6 slides. You can print it out and then scan it.
Okay.
and insert it on Microsoft Word if you want.
Okay.
But I know that there is like a way around it. If you have to Google it or something, I just don't remember how I did it, but I know I didn't screenshot or do any of that. And I think we've like had like 2 slides on a page. So you just gotta make sure they'll be able to read it.
Trisha?
When it comes to writing your commentaries, you can write it in first person, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like you can
Yeah.
use the word I.
Good question.
And when you're scanning, if you're putting it like on a disc or something, like I use a USB, and I thought I had put everything on it and nothing was there. So double check after you do like 1 or 2, because you don't want to be sitting there forever like doing that.
You wanna back up your things too? I knew someone who had everything only on the USB and lost the USB and it crashed. So she had to do her commentaries again. I would advise you to save it on your computer as well as a USB.
They'll be saving it in TaskStream, but they should
Oh,
still
yeah.
back up. I think they should still
Well,
back
you don't
up.
say, you can't save it in TaskStream until you finish it. Like if you're in the middle of the commentary,
Yeah,
you
they'll
know.
save it as you go along, though.
But like the way I've been working with the people, they had to like download the file from TaskScreen
Oh,
and
yes.
then work on it, so it wasn't on TaskScreen. Like them editing like online, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like you download the file and then it's on your computer, and then you have to re-upload.
Yes,
Yeah.
upload it into TaskStream, yeah. Yeah, you should still back everything up. And check all of your files, because you might think you have the right file, or you thought you saved or uploaded something and it's blank. You know, so you really have to check, even in your final submission, we'll go
Yeah.
through that. You have to, because TaskStream and the Pearson checks, they're gonna check that a file is there, but, you know, you'll only get an error if there's no file there. But if you have a blank file with an incorrect file, it's still
Yeah.
gonna go, because it thinks something is there. You know, so you have to really
Also with the
check.
commentaries, like you'll probably do like some like copy and pasting from your lesson plans for like the objectives and the standards. Make sure when you have to submit your commentaries, it's all in Arial font size 11.
Yeah, that's in your evidence chart too. That it needs to be.
Because especially if you have your lesson plans in like Times New Roman, Arial's bigger, so then you might actually run out of space without realizing that you didn't have any room left with your commentaries. Yeah.
Just do automatic. 4 minutes into that now. When you download the file.
It does, but not if you like copy and paste something in.
Right,
So like if I copied in like a standard and you
Right.
keep writing,
Yeah,
it's
but-
still in
Right.
whatever font it was in. So you just gotta double check. Cause you will copy and paste stuff. You're not gonna wanna sit there and write all the standards again and, you know. But
Any more questions?
I guess, so there's no way that you can link things on there.
No.
I
Do
wouldn't.
not
No.
put links. No, you can't link your lesson plans or anything like that.
Like the only place I used links was in my instructional materials, where if like
Right, if it's a
I had
reference.
a website that the students used, or if they used Brain Pop, I don't know if you guys heard that, like I put that link. So like
But the scorer won't, you know, click on a link to bring them outside the system.
Okay.
You know?
personally, like if you're using a website too, like I would screenshot this like the screen just so they can see what it looked like. I mean, you know, like you don't know if the link's not gonna work, or like something like Brain Pop where like you need to log in, what if they don't have a password, you know, like you just always wanna be like well prepared. I know it seems like it's a lot right now, and like you're like, oh, all these terms, but like it'll make sense as you're going along. Like I never thought like, I didn't think I would pass, let alone get mastery and like, you know, be tutoring 3 students this semester, you know, like you'll get through it, you know, but hopefully if you guys know someone, and you know, or ask the teachers, they're great help.
Yeah, we help you as much as we can. We try. We're on your side. We want you to pass. Rachel.
Yeah, I just have a question about like the deadlines you guys were talking about. Like, I don't plan on doing the safety net just because I'd rather do like how we said, take your time, like step back and then do it. But is there a certain amount of time you have to submit once you finish your placement, or is it kind of like when you feel ready?
There's a couple ways to answer that question. One is that it will be due to us as a draft for student teaching. We will give you a due date for that. It will probably be late April, that's what I'm thinking. That you'll submit it to us. Then you get some feedback or some comments. You have time to tweak your edTPA. finalize it, and then send it off to Pearson. So like I said before, your account is active for 18 months, so you certainly wanna do it within that time frame. You certainly wanna submit in time for a job and certification and, you know, moving along in life. And also, Mount St. Mary has a policy now too, that it's a 2-year, time limit on certification testing requirements, because the state, you know, changes things, and we can't necessarily guarantee that everything you know, needed to pass for a certification is the same as when you left.
And just on that note, let me remind you that until you are finished with everything, don't plan to graduate. Right? Because if you have to come back, you have to come back as a student, even if it's for a very, you know, limited time, a week or 2 weeks in a classroom, which we you need to be under the supervision of the college. You can't just send people, even though you've been here, into a district without having the responsibility for you. Okay, so just be careful with that. I know everybody's anxious to graduate. You can still walk, but just make sure you've got everything in place before you graduate. Graduation and certification are different. Once you've got all of your graduation requirements and your GPA, everything that you need, that's fine. And certification, you have to be real careful that you don't graduate, jump to God, because we did have that with one candidate who did it, and, you know, just, there's no way the college should certify her now, because she decided to graduate, even though she was told on multiple occasions not to. Okay, so just be careful with what you're doing. And just a few other things that we've seen, since we can't talk to you about specifics on your presentation. You're sending them your presentations to us because we are using them as a local assessment. We have a different rubric from the Pearson rubric, the same but different, it's a different rating scale. We need to know what we're teaching you and that it's the right thing. We need to see how what we're teaching in the coursework is transferring to this document. So that's why the faculty is reading them in the content areas, and just about everybody is reading childhood, and then Mrs. Woods and I take what's left, except for the high-level math, because, you know, let's do that well. But, so Dr. Merritt does this, but we need to see what